It is Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. This is another edition of Baseball Today presented to you by Mountain Dew. Looking for a refreshing citrusy kick this summer? Go grab yourself a Mountain Dew. That is not my man, Trevor Plouffe. That is my dude, Dalton Feely. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan. Intern Sawyer along for the ride as well. And I know you have filled in countless times for me on this show this season. This is the first time this pairing is working together. I can just say it is an honor to be working with you, sir.
Rose, I am super excited. I feel like there's a vet on the mound and you have this like rookie catcher coming in trying to call a game with you. It's electric. I've never been partnered up with you. It's me and Plouffe. Like, he's my guy, but you're also my guy. The dynamic is going to be electric, and I'm ready to go and talk some ball. Playoffs are incoming, Rose, and I'm excited.
Can I just say this, that 3 weeks ago, I was looking at the way the standings were going, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are we going to talk about the last week of the show? Like, we will have exhausted everything. Basically, everything will have been clinched. There might be one or two pieces of the order. But thank you, baseball gods. You came down. You made some teams go on a ridiculous run. Other teams, you stopped right in their path. So whatever you did, thank you for hooking us up here in 2025. Let's start with a tip of the cap, though, to a team that was basically eliminated after whatever it was, an 0-7 start. At least it felt that way with the Atlanta Braves. But I want to say, and I know that people are like, well, hold on. These are professionals. They get paid a lot of money. Yeah, there's a lot of dudes checked out this time of year. They have now won 10 in a row. Michael Harris went deep a couple of times last night. I just think they deserve a little bit of love. And people say, well, hold on. They were supposed to be a World Series contender. Why are you doing this? You know what? You end 2025 on a good note. We'll see what sort of changes they make in the offseason because they're far from perfect. But I think it's a nice run for them and their fans to end the year on.
Yeah, absolutely, Rose. And especially with a lot of the obstacles that Atlanta's had to overcome this season. Acuna being banged up and having that massive slump in the middle of the year. Chris Sale being out for majority of the year after that flip play against Juan Soto. Schwellenbach, Riley out for the year. The questions about Brian Snitker's future as manager of Atlanta. There's been a lot of question marks with Atlanta, especially this year. But 0-7 to begin the year, 8 straight losses to begin the year on the road. Now they've won 10 in a row. So it might not have been the picture perfect year Atlanta Braves fans were hoping about. But that said, they're closing the year nice and strong and could potentially play a little spoiler. You never know.
Yeah, you know what? I saw them the first week of the year when they were in Los Angeles. I think they started out by getting swept in a 4-game set in San Diego. Then they came up here. And the day that I saw them was the day that Jurickson Profar got popped for the 80-game suspension. So it really started that day, the hard roll downhill. But as I said, they finished off nicely. I would be shocked if Snit returns next year, but we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of weeks is my guess. In the meantime, let's get to the teams that are sticking around because the Braves will not be in the playoffs for the first time since 2017, but a team that is chasing its first ever World Series championship very much alive.
One pitch away. Ball game! You can't forget about next year. The Mariners are going to the playoffs.
Saying we love you. Might as well go win the whole fucking thing.
By the way, if you still have any doubt about who the MVP is, maybe Cal Raleigh just sealed it with that quote right there. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't want to start that again. I don't want to start that. I'm just saying that, you know what? I dig it. Anybody who's like, oh my God, what do I tell my kids? Tell your kids that if you hit 58 homers in a year and you lead the team on the precipice of their first division title in almost a quarter century, you can say, go win the whole fucking thing. Go for it. Right?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, historic year for a catcher, historic year for a switch hitter. He's been in the MVP race. But yeah, Mariners fans have been craving for this AL West division title. 2001, a very historic year for the Mariners. But since then, it has been really nothing in the AL West outside of a couple wild card appearances and not much playoff success. Looking for their first World Series title, Rose. And the Mariners are hot in the streets right now.
Yeah. Thanks in part to Josh Naylor, who last night came up with the bases loaded and 2 down in the 8th. It looked like the Mariners were going to push something across. I think they had the bases loaded and nobody out, and 2 guys struck out, including Raleigh. And Naylor comes up and clears him. And this is what they thought about when they traded for him. There are some players who headed into a free agent year that Seattle, as good a team as they've had, are reluctant to go up there and hit. And I was actually in Anaheim the day that he got traded and listened to his introductory press conference out in the dugout. And somebody asked him about hitting in Seattle, and he said, I love hitting there. I don't know what people are talking about. And you really don't hear a lot of newcomers go up there and be like, yes, I'm hitting in Seattle. I mean, Plouffe has talked about the metrics and how it plays up there. And he has always said, we've got to talk about Seattle being cavernous and a really tough place to hit as much as we talk about Coors Field being an uplifting place for batters. But he has just run with it, literally on the bases, and he has smashed and mashed. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of deal he gets in the offseason.
Yeah, watching him with Arizona this year, obviously I'm a Snakes guy. Like, this is what Josh Naylor does. Super clutch hitter. Defensively, there's always been that question mark at first base.
Cares.
I mean, and you've seen it for Cleveland too. This is a guy who's played for both of our teams. But I will say, Rosie, like Josh Naylor, fun fact from the Mariners PR team through Twitter, through X, whatever you call it, most go-ahead hits since 2021, Josh Naylor across all of Major League Baseball. So he's been used to being in this spot, being clutch, whether it's for Cleveland, Arizona, and for Seattle. And I feel like we've been saying, as MLB fans, right, the Mariners pitching has been dominant. And the big issue they've always had has been that lineup. And what does Jerry DiPoto and co do? They go out, get Geno Suarez, get Josh Naylor. And now look at this. September has been super kind to them. They've been clutch. It's been electric right now. I mean, the Mariners, could they be World Series contenders? We'll see. Because, I mean, right now, they're one game away. Their magic number's at 1 to clinch the AL West title. Seattle, man, super fun.
Well, so I guess that's the bigger question, is that if you, depending on which site you check, they are the favorite to represent the American League for the first time ever in a World Series. Do you have them as the favorite?
I do. And I'm going to start with the glass half empty, because I think people are going to say, oh, what about Toronto? They're the only 90-win team in the American League. Why aren't you taking Toronto? Well, I do have a lot of concerns with Toronto right now. Bo Bichette's on the IL. He's basically had been fighting for a batting title with Aaron Judge throughout the second half of the year. Chris Bassett just goes on the IL. That rotation had been very shored up. Bassett goes on the IL. Barrios has moved to the bullpen. Scherzer's had his struggles over the last 5 starts. You have Trey Yesevich in the rotation right now. So there's a lot of question marks. And don't forget Jeff Hoffman, too, who just continues to blow saves and give up nukes in the back half of games. So that's why I'm not picking Toronto. Now, why am I taking Seattle, Rose? I'm super excited. I think it's so funny because, me, Trev, and Jake, for Talking Baseball, we have our group chat, and we like sending in some notes and some funny moments. The Mariners, Etsy Witch Kurtz, that was like one of the biggest talking points over the last 2 weeks. They're 15-1, Rose, ever since the curse. Like, how crazy is that? That type of run. They went on a 10-game winning streak. They have a 5-game winning streak currently. It's the longest in the American League right now. The rotation, they have a core 4 right now: Wu, Gilbert, Kirby, Castillo. That is a fearsome 4. They have the most depth, I think, in the American League. And when we compare rotation to rotation, and this lineup, Rose, we talked about Josh Naylor being clutch, but like, let's go through some of the clutch moments that the Mariners have. They have the most runs in close and late situations in the American League this year. They're 12-53 when trailing by 7. Try that again. The Mariners are 12-53 when trailing entering the 7th inning. That doesn't sound super great, but it's the 3rd best record in baseball. They're 18-10 when entering the 7th inning tied. That's 4th best in baseball. They find ways, even when the lineup isn't coming through in the first half of the game, later in the game, whether it's Josh Naylor, Geno Suarez, Julio, J.P. Crawford, they have so many guys that contribute. The lineup's finally there in Seattle. The pitching has always been there. And I think with all this in mind, and especially the Mariners' Etsy Witch Curse, I think this could be a real year for Seattle.
Love that. You give us those numbers about late. You can only be that successful if then your bullpen doesn't blow shit up too. And I think it's probably been the least talked about part of their team. A lot of people know about Munoz and what he brings. And sure, he's had his moments where, just like any closer, it'll get a little bit ugly. But for the most part, he's been nails. And last night, he was so sharp. And people say, well, it was against a AAA team. We'll leave that off to the side for now. But the rest of the guys, Spire, I mean, that guy, I feel like he's out there every other day this year. Brash has pitched well. Bizzardo, all these guys, huge numbers in terms of workload out there, and they have all shown up and put out outstanding efforts. The one thing that would make me hesitant to call them the favorite is the status of Brian Wu. And we don't know it yet. I think we're going to find out on either maybe today, more likely Thursday. He just left his most recent start in which he was dominant against Houston with a pectoral injury. Pectoral injuries are no joke. And so if he's there and he's firing on all cylinders and was just a little something and he's going to be ready to go next weekend, fine. I can get on the favorite train. If he's not, I'm worried because he has this year become the dog in that rotation. The rest of it is so good because I think they can follow in line nicely. And people say, well, it doesn't matter who will start game one. I believe in this guy as a tone setter. I believe in him giving you at least 6 innings, even in his first, opportunity to shine under the spotlight. I got to wait until I see his health.
Oh, totally fair. I mean, he has been that dude. He set the record for this year for most 6-inning games to begin a season. Doesn't really walk guys. And sure, Gilbert was hurt in the beginning of the year. He's still striking out dudes. Kirby hasn't been nearly as efficient when it comes to walks per 9. But that said, Brian Wu, who would have thought coming into this year with all of these guys that Brian Wu would be the guy? Bryce Miller last year was electric. I think people thought that he could be the surprising guy that steps up. But no, it's Brian Wu who is entering as their 5th starter. He's become the race, and you're absolutely right. If he's injured, it could be a big question mark for the rotation.
Today's episode of Baseball Today, it is brought to you by our friends over at Brunt Workwear. Choosing work boots. It used to mean sacrificing comfort or durability. If they felt good, they didn't last. If they lasted, they wrecked your feet. Brunt Workwear finally ended the trade-off. Designed boots that withstand the toughest job sites while feeling as comfortable as your favorite sneaks. These might be the most comfortable work boots ever on the planet, even right out of the box. Not only are they incredibly comfortable, but they also deliver real performance on the job. Now, Brunt was tired of workwear brands out there cutting corners. You work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that simply do not hold up. So they built something better. Boots that are insanely comfortable, built for any job site. For a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use the code today at checkout. Just head on over to bruntworkwear.com. You use that code today, you're good to go. And after you order, they're going to ask where you heard about Brunt. Just do us a favor. Tell them it was from our show. Wear your Brunt boots. They look great. They feel fantastic, and they get the job done. So go get them today. All right, speaking of getting the job done, while the Mariners are chasing that first ever elusive ring, the team that's got the most in the history of the sport will have a chance to add to its hardware collection.
And the pitch. Looped into center field. Coming on, Taylor. He's not going to make the play. Here comes Judge. He'll score. And the Yankees are going to the postseason. Caballero drives in Judge. The Yankees with 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. And they clinched the postseason berth for the 60th time in their history.
I feel like I'm very proud, but I feel like I'd be prouder with the ring on my finger saying that we won the World Series. So until we get there, I don't know yet how I feel about the season.
Caballero, the walk-off game winner, he's barely been there a couple of months. And then Jazz Chisholm, who has made quite a name for himself there in the Boogie Down, saying what's always on his mind. And I kind of dig that about him. First of all, the way they came back and won last night against the White Sox, they get the first 2 guys on. You're like, oh, of course. And then Grisham, who's been so great in his time up there in New York, grounds into the double play. They throw the wild pitch. They score the game-tying run, and then eventually Caballero ends up with a blooper walk-off, which he knew right away. I was like, what?
I mean, reminiscent of the Gonzo 2001 World Series. Sorry, producer Dan. If we're talking 27 rings, I got to bring that up.
You're too young to remember that, Dalton.
Shh, we don't.
So is Dan. So is our one-of-a-kind producer.
But no, I mean, listen, when we're talking about the Yankees, the wild pitch, I think, was just nuts to me. It was a 3-2 pitch, and that ball, it was just a zoom ball, just gets completely away. And we talked about the Mariners beating the Rockies. The Yankees beat the White Sox. I guess that would be one of the other AAA teams, quote unquote, in the major leagues right now with their struggles that they've had. But I mean, New York, we're feeling pretty good. And I think one of the reasons why I think we should be feeling better about the New York Yankees compared to earlier in the middle of the year, Aaron Judge is back. And when I say he's back, like, sure, he was back in August when he was recovering from the elbow injury where he couldn't really play the outfield and throw. But finally, in September, he's batting 333. In comparison, when he came back, he was batting 241 over the month of August. So I think finally, when you're watching his at-bats, he looks more comfortable than he had been when returning from injury. And it's just as simple as this, Rosie. When Aaron Judge goes, the New York Yankees go. The lineup goes. Everything kind of falls into place. And I think in September, we're finally seeing again, oh, this is the Yankees we saw in April. The lineup's hitting, Judge, Jazz, Cody, the rest of the crew. And I think right now, like, they are a top 3 team in the American League, but it wouldn't be surprising if they make the World Series because that lineup, when you have the bottom of the order, like Austin Wells coming through and potentially Jose Caballero, Anthony Volpe, it's a pretty good unit. And I think the 28th ring is a realistic goal for them because this team can play. This team is a good team overall.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give it in terms of their ability to get back to the Fall Classic for the second straight year?
I'm going to say a 6. And here's my reason why. I do think the National League talent is overall better. I do think the eventual World Series winner will be coming from the National League. That's just my forefront opinion. Looking at the American League, I do think the Mariners should be the favorite. I think overall, encompassing the lineup, bullpen, and rotation, I think all 3 units are comparatively stronger than the Yankees. But the Blue Jays are banged up, like I mentioned earlier in the show. The Yankees are still fighting for that AL East division title, only 1 game back now. I think they have a good shot because they're going to be in the dance, and Max Fried and Carlos Rodon, I feel like that's been a duo that hasn't gotten enough love across Major League Baseball. They've been so good. These lefties have been amazing. And my question to you, Rosie, is I'm pretty comfortable with the lineup. We talked about, Jazz being the 3rd Yankee ever, 30 for 30. Bellinger 1 home run away from his first 30 home run season since 2019. All of these great notes. Max Fried and Carlos Rodon, I think that's one of the best 1-2 punches you can have in the playoffs. I'm very curious to see, in comparison to the rest of the playoff contenders, where would you rank those 2 guys?
I'm just trying to think of the teams that are left.
Right.
I mean, you could rank them 1 and I wouldn't be offended one bit. I think they're that good. I'm talking about all the playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, who do you put as 1 and 2 for the Dodgers? Do you put Yamamoto and Snell? That's a pretty good tandem right now. I can't give anybody on the Padres that. The Phillies, Sanchez has been phenomenal, and we know what Ranger Suarez does in the playoffs, right? With his pedigree. But it doesn't feel like it measures up to the 2 lefties of the Yankees. It could, but it just doesn't feel that way. Nobody, obviously, for the Mets. Cubs, if the Reds sneak in here, that's interesting. Am I missing anybody? Well, Toronto, Gossman's been great. He wasn't wonderful last night, but he has been great over the last couple of months, and I don't know who you'd pair with him on that one.
And then, like, Cleveland for you guys, if you guys
but that's not – I mean, Gavin Williams is great. He was phenomenal again last night. But once again, who's the second dude? Because I don't know if
you get 2023 Bybee.
But that's the problem is that Bybee and this Bybee are not the same, Yeah,
absolutely.
But, so I would say that it's Fried and Rodon, and that's good. Now, as far as answering the question, I had him right around a 6 as well. The number could tick up a touch, maybe even up to an 8 if they end up winning the division and getting the bye. Now, as you mentioned, they're a game back, but the Blue Jays do own the tiebreaker. The other reason I'm a little bit hesitant, the Yankees are 40 and 46 against teams with winning records this year. Last time I checked, you are only playing teams with winning records when we get to the playoffs. And this is how it's going to go. We could say they've got the best rotation ERA or second best in the AL since mid-August or whatever it is. They've got the best record in baseball since then. That's great. I'll put that all on the positive side of the ledger. But to sit here and discount what has happened against winning teams this year, I'm not going to do that.
And I think you're totally fair in doing so because, listen, these are going to be good teams you're playing. It depends if they're hot, if they're cold, doesn't matter, right? Like you said, they have struggled versus teams above 500. And I think it's ironic that in close games this year, in one-run games, the Yankees are they are exactly 500. The run differential is exactly 0. I think that's super funny because we talk about their bullpen issues, especially late in the games more recently. But when the lineup's going, Rosie, I'm sorry, because like Aaron Judge can carry this team. We've seen it happen over the last couple of years. When we talk about Aaron Judge in a positive light, that's huge because we don't talk about the sloppy brand of baseball that the New York Yankees play.
Oh, boy.
We don't talk about the base running.
Careful, Dalton.
We don't talk about the fielding. All we talk about. Rose, it's true. I'm sorry. I know. I'm not a Yankee guy. I don't root for the Yankees. I will say it how it is. I'm not worried about the Yankee fans and producer Dan Rourke. It's true. But I gave them the compliments. I will give them their flowers with Aaron Judge, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Jazz, Cody. The list goes on and on, right? But that said, they're 7th most errors in baseball. They're 21st in outs above average as team defense. The running, the base running, the mental mistakes they make, the late inning bullpen. Can they figure that out outside of David Bednar? There are some question marks, Rosie, and I think that's why we're at a 6 instead of an 8 or a 9. I will say my last note on them, even if they don't get the bye, I think one big note to make, they have the second best record in baseball on the road this year. So if they don't get the bye, I still think they could be in a good spot because they actually play pretty well away from Yankee Stadium.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. All right, it's time right now for Climbing the Mountain, which is brought to you by Dalton's favorite, Mountain Dew, where we take a look at the teams who are climbing up or sliding down the mountain on the trek to the postseason. And we now tip the scales to the American League Central, which has a brand new leader.
From impossible to first place.
I think it starts from the top. Voter doesn't let us get too big. Just try to take it day by day, I'm just thankful we're playing some meaningful baseball right now. A couple months ago, we weren't playing our best baseball. So to be able to kind of have this stretch and have everybody in Cleveland show up, this is real special.
That, of course, the tones of all-star left fielder Stephen Kwan, who came up big time and started their 6th-inning rally. So we know that they were 15 and a half back in early July. And now they're technically tied, although Cleveland has now won the season series, so that is the tiebreaker. But just 29 days ago, Cleveland was 12 and a half back. And we talked about this on yesterday's show, so I've had a little bit of time to reflect on it. I'm curious for an outsider who is just a huge baseball fan, what you're seeing here.
I think one of the unique things about this Cleveland team is they just fight, fight, fight. To quote Rocky V, I didn't hear no bell. That's kind of been the mantra for the Cleveland Guardians this year. As you mentioned, the 15 and a half games back in the division early July. That's the largest deficit to overcome to either tie or take the division lead in baseball history. The Guardians are the first team in baseball history to overcome a double-digit deficit in September. Rose, that's from Elias Sports Bureau and Sarah Langs on X Twitter, which is great. I think it's amazing, Rose. We've never seen anything like this. This is historic baseball. And I do want to mention you can have a great September and overcome, but you need a little bit of help. The Guardians are 17-5 in September. The Detroit Tigers are 5-14 in September. Yeah. You got to give some credit to the Guardians. You got to give a lot of credit for the Guardians, right? But you have to give a lot of blame to the Detroit Tigers too. They just completely collapsed. That rotation outside of Tarek Skubal just fell apart, striking out a ton, 19 Ks last night versus the Cleveland Guardians. I asked you off the show, off the record, Rosie, about what's your vibe on this? Is your team, right? So what's your vibe of this Cleveland team? How did they overcome this deficit? How are they making baseball history, being the first team to overcome this double-digit deficit in September? I was looking at the batting lineup. I was looking at the lineup numbers, right? Nothing really stands out in September, but the pitching, Rosie. I mean, my goodness, nothing compares. A 2.31 ERA in the month of September, by far the best in baseball by over a run. Is it magic in Cleveland, Rosie? What is your feel? I would love to know too. I think as a baseball fan, for me, what Cleveland's doing is impeccable. I don't know if that's magic, but Stephen Vogt and company deserves a lot of love for overcoming that major deficit.
I don't know. I'm going to sit here. I'm not here to be a smartass. I have watched a lot of baseball, a lot of it terrible when I was growing up in the 1980s. The lineup, even in the 80s, the early 80s, was better than the one we're putting out on a nightly basis. Now, Jose Ramirez is the wild card, right? Anytime you inject a Hall of Famer into the middle of your lineup, it can change things. But I just want to read to you The OPS of the starting lineup last night in their most important game of the year against the best starting pitcher in the sport. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Jose, 863. Awesome. Kyle Manzardo, although against a lefty, he was in there. That was nice to see.
Yeah.
774. Stephen Kwan, 719. Hold on. Now it gets fun. Arias, 639. Angel Martinez, 636. Brian Rocchio, 621. David Fry, shout out to him. Hope he's hanging in there. 592. Austin Hedges, 506. John Kenzie Noel, 452. Folks, I had 3 guys in the most important game of the year in the starting lineup with higher than a 640 OPS. And somehow, when they were down 2-0, they hung in there. They get back-to-back bunts by Kwan and Martinez, Hosey with an infield hit, Fry with a disastrous taking a ball nicks off the bat and hits him in the face. And thank God for Tarek Skubal and his post-game press conference was a thing of beauty. Like, it was heartwarming to hear him. But the 6th inning, people use this little thing, and they've made a whole promo about it in Cleveland. It's called guards ball. This was even further than guards ball, because the ball literally did not leave the infield, with the exception of Tarek Skubal trying to replace Frank Ragnow as a starting center for the Detroit Lions. This is the only time the ball left the infield. The Guardians score 3 runs and end up taking a lead that they don't relinquish. So I cannot explain it, how they get it done offensively, because they are a tough, tough watch. But they've done it.
And it's crazy because they did it versus arguably the best pitcher in baseball in Tarek Skubal in the biggest game of the season for both teams right now. I think it was very, I don't even know how to describe it, but you could see the look on Tarek Skubal's face. He was distraught when the ball hit David Fry, right? And literally the next pitch, he took some warm-ups, but he spikes a changeup, wild pitch, run, scores. Like, you could tell that he was still a little bit shaken after this whole event. So, like, I like a tip of the cap to Tarek Skubal, though, for being not only professional, but being a professional human being too, for understanding, like, man, I hope David Fry is okay, because that was scary. But going back to the question, Rosie, I do want to ask you, because when I think of the Cleveland Guardians and great things that have happened, I think of this comeback in 2025 and their 2017 22-game winning streak, which was absolutely phenomenal. Which one of these is more impressive to you?
Well, because I had them buried. I was around them in the midst of the 10-game losing streak, right around the July 4th holiday. And it's also when they found out that Luis Ortiz had just been, investigated for gambling. So it started to roll the wrong way down the hill at that point. And I just looked at the roster. I shared this yesterday, that I've been conversing with a guy in the organization, and we both said maxing out at 80 wins this year. Maxing out. They don't have a legitimate only right-handed hitter on the roster. Jose is a switch hitter, obviously. Angel Martinez can do some damage from the right side. They don't have a bona fide. They thought that Lane Thomas was going to be that guy. His foot has just wrecked his entire walk season. I guess that's turned from a walk season into a limp season for him. The pitching has been phenomenal, and one guy who definitely deserves all the credit, in my opinion, is Carl Willis. And he's an old school dude. People were worried that when Francona came back and took the Reds job that they were going to take him, and I don't think there was any way that team was going to let him get out of their grasp. He is that good. CC Sabathia mentioned him during his Hall of Fame induction speech, how much of a difference he made in his career, and he has done that with a bunch of guys who had not expected to compete at this high a level. He has totally changed Gavin Williams, whatever the hell he was, into a guy who went throw for throw last night with the best guy in baseball. So, one thing I want to get to, and you mentioned it last night, that the Tigers struck out 19 times. Well, apparently, if you listen to this interview with Riley Green, not everybody knew that.
But 19 Ks, that's not going to get it done usually.
19 Ks for what?
For you guys.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Now, please, if you're just audio only, join us on our YouTube channel so you can see Riley Green. And I like him. I like Riley a lot. but it was almost like a prosecutor was trying to make a witness squirm on the stand. He goes, "Not what? 19 what?
Yo,
19 Ks tonight." He's like, "What?" Like, it was shocking.
completely disheveled and shocked. I mean, the eyes, like, he's like, wait a minute. He literally had to do a double or triple take about that.
That was incredible. All right, so Cleveland has the tiebreak officially. Things are far from done. You've got Flaherty and Bybee going your way tonight. Tigers win. They're back up 1. Now, you do want to keep in mind, Rangers just got eliminated. They're going to go to Cleveland this weekend. I don't believe that DeGrom will pitch because I think he's going tonight, so they'll probably shut him down for the rest of the year. There won't be any Seager. There won't be any Simeon. There's obviously no Eovaldi, all sorts of stuff. In the meantime, the Tigers will have to go to Fenway, and we know that Boston is playing for an awful lot. So we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah.
Should be very, very interesting. All right. Time to get to the National League wild card. It continues to be totally wild, right? The Reds and Mets were tied going into yesterday. Reds had the tiebreaker. Cincy ends up losing. They never led in their 4-2 loss against the Pittsburgh Pirates. In the meantime, the Mets were down 6-1 mid-game on the north side of Chicago, but they ended up having their best dub of the year.
And he drives one, deep left center field. Armstrong back, and it's out of here! Francisco Alvarez puts the Mets in front with a 2-run homer!
That's who he is, and we feed off that. Guys love it. As a team, we need that. We need that spark. We need that energy.
Yeah, that's Carlos Mendoza talking about the catcher. And didn't he do this last year? Was it against your Diamondbacks when he turned to the I forget who it was, when he turned to the dugout and he gave this look, and it felt like it started something for the Mets last year. Here he literally puts both hands on his head like, holy shit, this is exactly what we needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it was versus the Diamondbacks too. It's funny that you mentioned that. I don't know if that's the specific one that we're both thinking of in 2024, but he has definitely done that in Chase Field too. Rosie, I mean, the Mets, right? Like, they collapsed. They lost 7 straight games in July, 7 straight in August, 8 in September. Do you know how many teams have made the playoffs while doing that, while having 3 separate 7-game losing streaks in the second half? Do you know how many? 1. The 2006 St. Louis Cardinals, which I know Mets fans love to hear about because the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series that year. But Rosie, like, it's super impressive because the vibes have not been good basically in the second half. The pitching has been an absolute mess, especially, with the starters outside of the David Peterson 6-inning stat. He's been very bad in the second half, a 6.3 ERA in the second half. People were making fun of Juan Soto, if you will, but he's going to have a near 40-40 season. But we're all
Wait, did you call him So-So or Sosa, as in like he butchered a play in right field last night, like Sammy used to?
That was tough. I mean, that was a F9 that turned into what should have been an E9 on that fly ball, costing a couple of runs.
Right.
But we're looking at this wild card, right? The Mets, everything I've said, like, there's been not a lot of good, especially in September. So surely they're not going to make the playoffs, right? But to quote Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. Because when we look at the remaining schedule for the Mets, Reds, and Diamondbacks, the Reds have to play 2 more at Pirates, one of them being Paul Skeen's start, which I believe is tonight. And then
Yeah, but it's against Hunter Green.
True, which it's going to be good on good. So it's going to be who comes out on top. Paul Skeens, if he's going to be the NL Cy Young, I think it's pretty fair to say at this point, has one more electric start, especially versus a playoff contending team. Like, that just cements it too. One of those signature moments against a rival. But then the Reds go play 3 against the Brewers. Why is that of note? The Reds have demons against the Brewers. It's been a huge talking point. They've lost the last 13 series to Milwaukee, Rose. 13 series, not 13 games, 13 series. They're 15-37 against the Brewers since the start of 2022. That is not an easy path. And I think people sometimes forget the Milwaukee Brewers, they might not have anything to play for come this weekend, but they're the number 1 team in baseball. And sometimes even when you don't have your A squad out there, you can still play spoiler. I saw it very well last year in 2024 when the San Diego Padres came to Chase Field and did the exact same thing, Rose. So I'm not counting the Mets chickens yet, but I think they're in a very good spot, especially in comparison to the Reds.
Why don't you go motion detector that bad boy? This happened to Jolly yesterday too. There we go. So we could see that smiley face of Dalton Feely.
There we go.
Yeah. Listen, this is what is the best part of this sport, is that in the last week, the Reds can look at and say, oh, we got the Pirates coming. We just won 5 straight for the first time this year. That joint is going to be jumping. They're not playing for anything. They've got the worst offense in baseball. And even in a 3-game series, the likelihood of you sweeping is not very good. So you're going to lose one. And I've had this feeling before, so I know how my friends in Cincinnati are feeling when they wake up today. They're going, holy shit, we just missed our chance. And that's not the case. It's not the case, but they're probably thinking to themselves. And then on the other side of this is there should be Mets fans that are feeling good. They could have shut it down. I think they got fortunate that Cade Horton came out of that game.
Yes.
Hopefully he's okay. He's dealing with a little spasming back, it sounds like. We'll find out more today, but I hope that kid's okay because he is electrifying. So you know what? That's the break the Mets needed. They needed to see 6 innings of that Cubs bullpen out there. And did it save their season? It's possible, but you still got to put lumber to the horsehide out there. And that's exactly what they did. I loved Alvarez's emotion. I think too long the Mets have played this too cool for school attitude. And I loved the raw emotion where he just looks at the dugout, hands on helmet, gives the boys one of these and is like, fuck it, let's go. And let's remember how tough the year's been for that kid. He got sent down. He was not good enough and he got sent down. Then he gets hit on the hand during that time in the minor leagues. And he had to work his ass to get back up here and, have bestowed upon him the honor of being the catcher of a playoff contending team. And I think that shows some true grit to get past that.
And I think for Alvarez too to do it, he's only 23 years old. He turns 24
right, we
in November.
That.
He's such a young kid because he's had his moments in 23 and 24, especially in 24. But they needed that emotion. I think sometimes we also forget too, outside of Alvarez being a very young player, that this Mets team, they're still human beings, right? We talk about the stats and all of that, sure, but there's the emotion side of it where you can come out flat or you can come out energetic. You're down 6-1. And sure, Cade Horton leads the game, but they could have rolled over and died. They did not. They come back. That is a statement win at Wrigley Field, who the Cubs right now are playing the role of anti-spoiler. They've lost 5 straight, 4 to the Reds, 1 to the Mets now. As a Diamondbacks fan, I don't love that, but Mets, if you keep it going, you have 3 against Miami.
No, don't say that. Don't do that, Dalt. I'm not going to let you do that. Yeah. Don't say they've got 3 against Miami because in 2007, the Mets collapse finished against the Marlins. So it's not.
You didn't even. My point was going to be they have Sandy going. They've won 10 of their last 11 games. It's
okay, there you go. Thank God.
Oh yeah. I was given some.
Hey, listen, this weekend could be like a voodoo witch sort of situation for the Mets. They've got to be careful. I'm sure we'll talk more about that on Friday's show. There's one other point I want to get out before we move on from the Mets. Edwin Diaz was fucking unbelievable last night. They brought him in for a 6-out save. This would have been the area where Ryan Helsley would have pitched, right? They've got a 2-run lead. They're on the road, but he has become the anti-dependable pitcher. Diaz struck out 5 of the 6 guys he's faced. And by the way, just of note, don't ever let Dansby Swanson hit against this guy, ever. I know he's a great fielder. I know he's one of your dudes that you pay over $170 million to. He has struck out in 10 of his 11 at-bats against Edwin Diaz. So just put that one, Craig Counsell, in the notes section. Diaz was awesome.
And I know Jolly has mentioned too, when we've talked about the Mets, it's in big moments, sometimes they don't let Diaz go 6 and get those 6 outs. We saw it in one of those games we went to at Citi Field when they played Philly. Harrison Bader hits a 2-run home run off of Helsley, and Jolly had said from the beginning of the 8th inning, let Diaz get 6 outs. In big moments, Edwin Diaz can do it. We've seen it. And I think I give the Mets some props there for realizing we need to win this game. This is an emotional game. We just came back. Diaz, you get your 6 outs, lights out, trumpets play, Mets up 1.
Yeah, but guess what? He got 6 outs, 5 via the strikeout on just 27 pitches. You talk about efficient.
Yeah, for 2 innings, absolutely.
There were no foul balls last night. He got 18. Well, there were foul balls, but I'm just saying that there were no extended at bats.
Right.
He got 18 strikes out of those 27 pitches. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome stuff for him. All right, today's episode sponsored by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Life's a trip, so why not make the most of it? With over 4,000 hotels worldwide, Best Western is there for every detour and destination and unexpected twist and turn along the way. So whether you're hitting the road, traveling for work, or chasing the next big game, there's a room waiting for you. But a great stay isn't just about rest. It's about what comes next. A great stay doesn't just help you recharge. It sets the tone for the early wake up, the late night arrival, the last minute change of plans. Best Western, I get it. Traveling isn't one size fits all. It's for the planners and the procrastinators, the loyalty point collectors, and the, hey, I just booked it crowd. So whether you're traveling solo with your friends or the entire roster, Best Western has got you covered. Pack your bag, cue up the playlist, hit the road. Life's a trip. Make the most of it at bestwestern.com. And I believe that our crew is on the road in Chicago talking baseball, hanging out at a Best Western. They're going to the game tonight. That's going to be a blast for them. So whatever you want to do down the stretch of your baseball season, call on our friends over at Best Western. All right. So Mets, little bookkeeping, 1-game lead over Cincinnati, and your Arizona Diamondbacks, the Snakes, hanging around despite trailing the defending World Series champions late in the game 4-0.
Base hit. Hurry. Here comes Toa. Alex Cole with a throw. He is safe.
Dalty. Come on, smile. There you go, my man. Had you lost hope last night after Shohei shoved?
I was nervous. I mean, I will say this, Rosie. There are a lot of ways Diamondback games can end. They could start off hot and then go scoreless after the first inning, which I've seen a few times this year. They can go scoreless until late in the game and come back. They had a 7-3 comeback against the Padres at Chase Field earlier this year. It's the cardiac cobras. I don't know what you want to call them. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they fight. And I got to give some love to Geraldo Perdomo.
100%.
I mean, the moment that he had 2-strike count, tie game, bottom of the ninth, you're facing Tanner Scott. Now, sure, has not had a great season this year. I totally understand that. Has the most blown saves in baseball among qualified relievers. But Rose, I mean, he's going to finish top 5 in MVP voting. Geraldo Perdomo.
And he should.
As he should. Corbin Carroll might be in that discussion too. But that said, Rosie, you're facing basically elimination because you would have been 2 back at this point. The Reds have the tiebreaker as well. It would have looked very bleak. You would have had 2 more versus the Dodgers, 3 more at San Diego. But you're down 4. You just fight. Want to shout out Torey Lovello too because he burns Jordan Lawler in the middle of the game to get a right-handed pitcher in. Pinch hits ADC, hits a clutch 2-run home run, makes it a 1-run game. James McCann, a clutch 2-strike bunt to move the runners over in the ninth inning to second and third. Ildemaro Vargas with Jorge Barosa with a 2-strike sac fly to tie the game. And then Perdomo once again. He has the highest batting average with 2 strikes this year. I think he's top 5 with batting average and with 2 outs this year. 98 RBIs, Rosie, for a shortstop who plays very good defense and who's hitting like 290 with an 850 OPS and nearly 20 home runs. It's amazing. I know I'm spieling right now, but like there's some hope for the Arizona Diamondbacks somehow. And
there is.
They sold the headline.
There's legit hope. And the fact that they've got a couple more against the Dodgers, I know that sounds weird to say, but the Dodgers aren't going to extend their starters at this time of year. So you are going to see whatever mess of the bullpen that's out there. And they took advantage. I want to say this about Perdomo. When they extended him to 4 years, $45 million, I hadn't paid close enough attention to him last year because didn't he get it in the spring of this year? Or was it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting deal. And I used to host shows at CNNSI with Steve Berthiaume. So I texted him. I was like, is he really that good? He goes, they got the deal of the century, the team. He goes, it's even better than Corbin Carroll's deal. I was like, what? And sure enough, he has been phenomenal. Every part of his game is great. He is an incredible young man and leader on that team. Everything about him is A++. And Jeff Passan, our buddy Passan, had a great tweet about him, just laying out some of his numbers. But I think he's so much more than numbers. And I said this last week, I think, that whomever his agent is, you're fired. You're fired because you cost your client 9 figures. He is a fucking dog out there, and he's great. I want to mention something about the Dodgers bullpen. Obviously, living in Los Angeles, I have a lot of friends that are Dodger fans. And one in particular, my buddy Kevin Mahan, shout out Kevy, who was with me the night that I met my wife.
Wow.
30 years ago. We walked in the bar. I turned to him and I said, God, I hope that's her. And sure enough, it were. So I listened to Kevin's bitching and moaning about the Dodgers all the time. Here's the numbers on Scott since the break. ERA of over 8, 11 innings pitched, 9 walks, 8 strikeouts. He's also got 10 blown saves. You mentioned that. Blake Trinan, in his last 5 appearances, ERA of 5.5, 4 losses. Kirby Yates, 5.23 ERA, 9 earned runs in his last 10 innings pitched. Even Dreyer and Henriquez, a couple of young guys that they've been able to rely on, got scratched up last night. This is going to be a huge story next week when we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, that's their Achilles heel. The rotation is one of the best in baseball. The lineup has 3 Hall of Famers, if even more potentially. This bullpen, Rosie, this is this should be a 100-win team. We talked about the Dodgers being arguably the best roster in baseball history coming into the year. Now they're one, I believe, 2 games out of the NL West with the Padres, 1.5, excuse me. Padres are still in this for the NL West. There's a world where San Diego jumps them at the end of the year and the Dodgers fall in wild card. That's crazy to think
it's tough. I don't think that ends up happening.
I agree.
But the Dodgers go to Seattle. Did you mention that?
I did not. And
okay,
the Padres play the Diamondbacks in San Diego, who are hopingly still fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the year.
It's all going to be interesting. Before we get out of here, real quick, ABS will be here in 2026. It got approved by league ownership. 23-7, I believe, was the final tally. Each team's going to get 2 challenges per game. You retain them as long as you win. Are you excited or not?
I'm excited because I think it incorporates both elements of the ABS system where we're getting calls right and then still keeping that human element. Because I do think one of the most valuable things within an MLB franchise is having a catcher that can get your pitcher some strikes. I know Pat Bailey made some comments about how he's against ABS because that is what his bread and butter is, being the best defensive catcher in baseball. But that said, Rosie, I'm excited because you get the best of both worlds. Big moment, challenge, you get it right, you get to keep it, right? And it's super quick. It's going to take 10 to 15 seconds. Only the pitcher, batter, or catcher can challenge. I love it. We're getting calls right. It's not slowing the game, the pace of play. It's going to be a perfect thing in big moments.
We didn't talk about Walker Buehler's comments on it last week. He said, hey, veteran pitchers that are veteran deserve those calls. I've always been on the other side of it. I'm like, why should they get a call? Mm-hmm. And how do you earn the calls? I just don't know how you do that. And because at some point, I mean, I grew up in the Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz era when the plate was that big. People can't see my hands, but they are significantly out of the screen, right? So I'm okay. I want to see it. I want to see us get better. I want to see sports continue to improve through technology. The one thing I'm going to miss it because it feels like the last bastion of umpire versus player and or manager. We're going to lose that, right? We can basically review everything except the ball in front of the bases, which is utterly preposterous. So we're not going to have, our argument's going to be extinct starting next year.
I think managers will find ways, right? You're trying to
I hope so.
Create a spark, if you will, get those guys going.
I hope so.
They're going to argue something.
Yeah, maybe you'll be out of challenges, and then, that's the only way that we can rekindle that fire. But I'm all for it. All right, lot to get to in the comments section. You excited for ABS? Who's winning these things? Who's winning the AL East? Who's going to win the AL Central? We didn't even talk much about Houston today, but they lost against the Athletics in the start of a road trip. It just means that we got a lot more to talk about Thursday because our buddy Dalton will be here. So for our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, our awesome intern, Sawyer, that is the uber-talented and intelligent Dalton Feely. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Thursday here on Baseball Today, presented to you by Mountain Dew.